Genius thinking looks rare, but it starts with simple habits. Clear thought begins with honesty. It is not about big or complex ideas. It begins when you notice what you see and admit what you do not know. Richard Feynman treated this as the first rule for real understanding. He did not pretend to know more than he did, and he did not hide his confusion. When you pay attention to what is in your mind, you see which parts are solid and which parts are vague. You stop acting as if you understand something just because you recognize a word. In this gap, real thinking can begin. You make room for careful, honest thought. Clear thinking starts with honest attention. Genius thinking needs a clean base. A clean base means fewer hidden assumptions and less lazy thinking. Most people rely on mental shortcuts without seeing them. You hear a term and assume you know the thing behind it. You repeat what others say without checking it. This type of thinking blocks learning. The most dangerous ideas are the ones you think you understand but never tested. Thinking becomes clearer when you notice shortcuts. You ask what you are assuming and what you are taking for granted. When you see an assumption, you pause and check it against basic facts. You may find that some ideas are weak or built on habit, not on truth. As you remove these quiet assumptions, your mind feels lighter. You stand on a more solid base, and from this base you can build stronger ideas. Genius thinking requires removing assumptions. Genius thinking uses simple questions to test ideas. Feynman relied on very basic questions. He did not try to sound smart. He tried to be clear. When you ask a simple question, like what is really going on, you force your mind to drop vague talk and get to the point. You are not trying to impress anyone. You are trying to understand. Simple questions show where an idea is weak. If you cannot explain a concept in plain words, you have learned a label, not the thing itself. Feynman used this as a private test. If he could not explain something simply, he knew he had more work to do. You begin to see that simple questions are not childish. They are precise tools. They clear away noise and reach the core of a problem or idea. Simple questions build strong understanding. Genius thinking accepts uncertainty and uses doubt as a tool. Doubt is often seen as weakness, but Feynman treated it as strength. Real knowledge always contains some level of uncertainty. The world is complex. Data can be limited. Models can fail. Instead of hiding this, he kept it in view. You can apply this by allowing yourself to say you do not know yet. This removes pressure to defend weak ideas and lets you test them instead. You look at your beliefs and ask how well they match the facts. You check if other explanations fit better. Honest doubt keeps thinking flexible and accurate. It stops you from locking onto a story just because it feels good or familiar. You stay ready to adjust when new evidence appears. Honest doubt strengthens thinking. Genius thinking turns complex ideas into simple language without losing truth. If you cannot explain something simply, you do not really understand it. Complicated terms can hide gaps in knowledge. When you explain ideas in plain, everyday words, you force your mind to build a clear picture of what is really happening. You can do this with any idea. You take the main point and try to explain it as if speaking to a beginner. You avoid big terms unless you can define them in basic language. If you get stuck, that shows where your understanding is thin. That gap becomes your next learning target. This process is not about sounding smart. It is about making your own thinking transparent and strong. Clear language builds clear thought. Genius thinking is grounded in evidence, not wishful belief. Nature is the final judge of any idea. A theory might be elegant, simple, or pleasing, but if experiment and observation do not support it, it must change. You can bring this into your thinking by asking how your ideas connect to real-world evidence. If you hold a belief, you look for data that supports it and also for data that challenges it. You pay attention to results, not just reasons. When an idea fails in practice, you take that result seriously. Testing ideas against reality removes errors. It reduces the power of bias and desire. It shifts focus from liking an idea to matching what actually happens. Over time, thinking becomes more aligned with truth and less driven by comfort. Evidence keeps thinking grounded and true. Genius thinking does not stop at reading. It works with ideas in an active way. When you only read or listen, the mind can stay passive. Words pass through without forming a strong structure. Feynman worked with ideas. He wrote them down, took them apart, and built them back up. He derived results on his own instead of only trusting what was written. You can do this by pausing after learning something and restating it in your own words. You might write a short summary, explain the concept out loud, or solve a small problem that uses the idea. During this process, you see what you understand and where you are only copying. Active work turns information into knowledge. It makes the idea part of your mental system, not just a memory. Active learning creates real knowledge. Genius thinking is not a one-time event. It is a habit built over many small steps. Feynman did not rely on sudden bursts of insight. He trained his mind through daily practice. He questioned things often. He tested ideas again and again. He explained concepts to himself and others. Each act may seem small, but together they formed a strong pattern. You can begin by turning a few of his methods into simple routines. Choose one idea each day to question more deeply. Explain something you learned in plain language. Check one belief against evidence. These short tasks change how you use your mind. With repetition, they become automatic. You begin to think more clearly without forcing it. Your default mode shifts from passive acceptance to active examination. This is how a genius style of thinking grows in an ordinary life. Genius thinking is built through habit. Genius thinking avoids false confidence and builds real confidence from tested ideas. False confidence appears when you feel sure without strong reasons. You may like a belief or repeat it often, so it feels true. False confidence stops learning. It makes you ignore errors and resist new facts. You can work against it by asking what your certainty is built on. Look for specific tests, results, or clear explanations that support your view. If you cannot find them, lower your level of certainty. This does not mean you freeze. It means you place your belief at the right strength. Over time, ideas you hold most firmly will be the ones that survived many checks. This confidence is quiet and stable. It does not need loud claims. It is ready to update if better evidence appears. True confidence comes from tested understanding. Genius thinking uses independent judgment. It does not rely only on authority or imitation. Feynman respected other scientists, but he did not copy them blindly. He listened, read, and learned, but then built his own inner picture. He checked ideas against his own understanding and against facts. If something did not make sense, he worked on it until it did, or held it as uncertain. You can use this in any area. You do not reject experts, but you do not treat their words as final. You try to see the logic behind what they say. You ask how they know what they claim. You restate their ideas in your own words and see if they still hold together. Independent thinking does not mean being stubborn. It means being active and honest in your thinking. You do not outsource your mind. You make your own map, even when you learn from others. Over time, you begin to trust your ability to reason, not just your ability to repeat. Independent thinking builds real understanding. Genius thinking treats learning as a continuous path, not a fixed goal. Feynman stayed curious throughout his life. He did not limit himself to one topic. He explored physics, art, computers, and many other subjects. This wide and ongoing learning kept his mind flexible and gave him more tools to think with. Ideas from one field could connect to ideas from another. You can treat your learning in the same way. Pick up new skills and ideas. Revisit old topics with fresh eyes. Allow your views to evolve when you find better explanations. You keep upgrading your mental models. With this approach, you stop seeing genius as a fixed label. You see thinking as a living process that grows as you grow. Each year of honest learning adds depth and range to your mind. Genius thinking grows through lifelong learning. Genius thinking is not magic or mystery. It is clear, honest, and tied to evidence. Strong thinking rests on simple pillars: honest attention, simple language, active testing, and constant learning. You do not need rare talent to start using these pillars. You need a decision to think clearly and a willingness to see where you are wrong. When you think in this way, your ideas become more stable and useful. You build them on facts, not on habit or hope. You stay open to change, but you do not drift without reason. You use doubt not to paralyze yourself, but to keep your mind clean. Over time, this style of thinking changes how you see knowledge, work, and life. It gives you a mind that is steady, sharp, and honest. Genius thinking is built on clarity and honesty.